Tyrin Turner finally confirms Menace II Society, Darkest Secrets. The gritty streets of Los Angeles. A film that would later become an iconic representation of urban struggle. Menace II Society was a shocking, unfiltered look at life in the projects. But what if I told you that behind the camera, the chaos was just as real? In the midst of this raw, emotional drama, secrets were buried, deep secrets that could change everything we thought we knew about the movie, the actors and the powerful forces that shaped it. Tyrin Turner. The man behind the unforgettable portrayal of Caine has finally lifted the curtain on the dark, untold stories from the making of this legendary film. The drama wasn't confined to the characters on screen, it was alive and kicking on set. Picture this Tupac Shakur, a young man at the height of his power, ready to step into a role that would have cemented his legacy even further. But instead, his time on set would end in a shocking twist. Tupac and the Hughes brothers. The directors of the film were no strangers. They had worked together before on the hit music video, Brenda's Got a Baby. But things weren't the same when Tupac arrived on set for Menace II Society. His frustration was palpable. What started as a passionate discussion about his character Sharif, a former gang member turned Muslim, escalated into a heated confrontation that would lead to Tupac being fired, never to return. But was this just about creative differences, or was there more at play? The industry might have painted Tupac as difficult, but Tyrin Turner's story reveals another side, a man fighting for the integrity of the script, for depth in his role, and for authenticity in every character he portrayed. What led to Tupac's departure from the film? What were the power dynamics that pushed a rising star out of a project that would later become a cultural touchstone? This is just the beginning. The real story. The story behind the story has been hidden in plain sight for decades. Are you ready to discover the secrets that rocked the Menace II Society set and shook up Hollywood's elite? Stay tuned, because the truth is about to come out, and it's darker and more complicated than you ever imagined. Tyrin Turner's journey to stardom was anything but typical. Born in Los Angeles, California on July 15, 1972, Tyrin grew up in one of the most challenging neighborhoods in the city, a place where dreams often collided with harsh realities. Raised by his mother, Turner was immersed in a world where survival was paramount, and the allure of fame and fortune seemed as distant as the stars themselves. Growing up in South Central Los Angeles, Tyrin experienced firsthand the struggles of living in a community plagued by poverty, crime, and systemic inequality. His early life was shaped by the street culture that surrounded him, but he also had an undeniable love for storytelling and performance. It wasn't just the gang activity and the everyday dangers of the streets that defined his upbringing. It was his ability to see the world in a different light. Even at a young age, Tyrin had an eye for the power of narrative. He often found himself captivated by movies, television, and the performances of actors who seemed to transcend the limits of their environments. These were the images that sparked his imagination and helped him to dream of a future beyond his circumstances. Tyrin's introduction to acting was not a glamorous one. It came from a deep desire to escape the environment that was beginning to feel like a trap. He was drawn to the arts, finding solace and purpose in acting as a way to channel his feelings and experiences into something creative. In his youth, he joined a local acting program, which eventually led him to his first major role. However, before his breakthrough, he had to face the many struggles that come with trying to build a career from nothing. It was the early 1990s when Tyrin's life began to change. At the time, Los Angeles was buzzing with the energy of a generation of young black actors who were beginning to make a name for themselves in Hollywood. The city was teeming with new opportunities, but it was also a time when black actors faced challenges in finding roles that weren't confined to stereotypes. Tyrin, however, was determined to be different. He refused to be boxed in by Hollywood's limited view of black actors. His talent, drive, and raw energy quickly caught the attention of those in the industry. In 1993, at the age of 21, Tyrin Turner's life would take a dramatic turn when he was cast in the film Menace II Society. Directed by Alan and Albert Hughes, the movie was a groundbreaking portrayal of urban life in South Central Los Angeles. The film was a stark, unflinching look at the struggles of young black men living in the inner city, a narrative that was both eye-opening and difficult to watch. Tyrin was cast as the lead Caine, a young man whose life was shaped by violence loss and a desperate struggle for redemption. The film, released in 1993, was a game-changer for both Tyrin and the industry. It became an instant cult classic, praised for its raw, authentic depiction of life in the inner city. Tyrin's portrayal of Caine was a revelation. He brought a quiet sadness and depth to the character, making Caine's journey feel painfully real. His performance was lauded for its emotional weight, and it quickly established Tyrin Turner as a rising star in Hollywood. However, Tyrin's journey to fame was not an easy one. He had to prove himself in an industry that wasn't always kind to actors who came from his background. The Hollywood system was often more concerned with looks and marketability than with talent and substance. Tyrin's success in Menace II Society helped to break some of those barriers, but it also placed him in a position where he was forced to navigate the complex and often unforgiving world of Hollywood. Despite his rising fame, Tyrin remained grounded in the values that had shaped his life. He was committed to telling authentic stories, ones that reflected the struggles and triumphs of people who, like him, had lived through hardships. He found it important to portray characters that were real, not just fictionalized versions of black life for the sake of entertainment. As he navigated the complexities of Hollywood, Tyrin remained true to his roots, determined to use his platform to give a voice to those who often went unheard. In the years following Menace II Society, Tyrin's career continued to rise. He appeared in several notable films and television shows, but none quite like Menace II Society. His role as Caine remained the defining moment of his career, one that would continue to resonate with audiences for years to come. Yet, despite his success, Tyrin faced many of the same struggles that plagued other actors in Hollywood. The industry's tendency to pigeonhole black actors into specific roles, the pressure to maintain an image, and the constant battle to secure meaningful, challenging roles were all obstacles that Tyrin had to navigate. Like many actors of his generation, Tyrin often felt conflicted between his desire to succeed in Hollywood and his commitment to telling honest, authentic stories. Through it all, Tyrin's story has been one of perseverance, resilience, and dedication to his craft. His journey to stardom was shaped by the same determination that allowed him to survive in a world that was stacked against him. His experience as an actor, particularly with Menace II Society, was a powerful testament to the impact that one film could have on both an actor and the culture at large. And despite the struggles, Tyrin Turner remains a force in the industry, a living example of how talent, authenticity, and hard work can defy the odds. Tyrin Turner's journey to fame wasn't a straight path, but rather one filled with hurdles, challenges, and moments of clarity that defined who he was as an actor. His rise to fame is one of raw authenticity and undeniable talent, with Menace II Society as the turning point that catapulted him from relative obscurity to the forefront of Hollywood. But before he became the breakout star in this iconic film, Tyrin faced the harsh realities of being an up-and-coming actor in an industry that often overlooked people like him. The early 1990s were an exciting time for black actors in Hollywood. While there was a growing demand for more diverse stories, the industry still had a tendency to pigeonhole black actors into stereotypical roles. Tyrin, coming from the tough neighborhoods of South Central Los Angeles, had a deep understanding of the world the Hughes brothers were trying to portray. He was more than just an actor. He was someone who could embody the pain, anger, and vulnerability of characters living in the inner city. It was this authenticity that eventually caught the attention of casting directors. Tyrin's big break came in 1993 when he was cast as the lead in Menace II Society, a film that would go on to change the landscape of urban cinema. Directed by Albert and Alan Hughes, Menace II Society was a gritty and unflinching look at life in South Central Los Angeles. The film, which followed the life of a young man named Caine Lawson, portrayed the hardships of growing up in a neighborhood filled with drugs, violence, and poverty. It wasn't just another gangster movie, it was a brutally honest examination of how systemic oppression and violence affected young people in these communities. Tyrin was cast in the role of Caine, a character whose journey from a troubled youth to a man grappling with the consequences of his actions struck a deep chord with audiences. His performance was not just memorable, it was transformative. With a mix of vulnerability, rage, and inner conflict, Tyrin brought Caine to life in a way that felt real and relatable. The character wasn't a stereotypical gangster, but a young man who had been shaped by his environment, struggling to find a way out while being pulled deeper into the chaos of his surroundings. His portrayal of Caine was one of the most talked-about performances of the year. Audiences were captivated by his ability to portray a character caught between the harsh realities of his environment and the desire for something better. Tyrin's nuanced performance showed that even the toughest individuals had layers, and through Caine he explored themes of identity, redemption, and survival. He wasn't just a victim of circumstance, he was a reflection of the struggles faced by so many young men in similar situations. As the film gained traction, so did Tyrin's profile. He quickly became a household name admired for his compelling portrayal of Caine. It was a role that not only defined his early career, but also cemented his place as one of the leading actors in Hollywood's emerging wave of black talent. The film itself became a cult classic, hailed for its authenticity and its ability to depict the raw truth of life in the hood. It resonated with young people, particularly in urban communities, who saw parts of themselves reflected in the characters on screen. But while Tyrin's performance was widely praised, the film's success also created a double-edged sword for him. As much as Menace II Society propelled his career, it also pigeonholed him. The film's raw depiction of gang violence and life in South Central Los Angeles left Tyrin branded as the actor who played the troubled character Caine. The typecasting was a common challenge that many black actors faced during this period, especially in a Hollywood that wasn't yet ready to embrace diverse roles for black talent. Despite the success of the film, Tyrin struggled to find roles that matched the depth of his performance in Menace II Society. He was offered several parts in films that felt like mere extensions of his character as Caine, which left him feeling frustrated. Hollywood had placed him in a box, and he knew it would take more than one successful film to break free from it. His rise to fame wasn't just about the accolades or the recognition. It was about a young man trying to forge his own path in an industry that often tried to define him based on the roles he played. Tyrin wanted to show Hollywood and the world that he was more than just the tough guy from the hood. He wanted to demonstrate his range as an actor and prove that he could portray characters who weren't defined by their circumstances. It was this ambition that fueled his next steps in the industry. In the years that followed, Tyrin continued to work, taking on roles in various television shows and films, but none of them quite reached the same level of cultural impact as Menace II Society. While he didn't experience the meteoric rise that many expected, he remained a respected figure in the industry, consistently working and honing his craft. In a sense, Tyrin became a symbol of the overlooked but fiercely talented actors who worked tirelessly behind the scenes trying to break through the noise of Hollywood's obsession with marketability. But Tyrin's real turning point came when he began to understand the power of his story and the impact that Menace II Society had on his life and the lives of others. As the years passed, he started to receive messages from fans who expressed how much the movie had meant to them. They shared stories of how his portrayal of Caine had inspired them to change their lives, or how the film had opened their eyes to the struggles faced by young people in neighborhoods like South Central. Tyrin began to understand that the movie wasn't just a stepping stone in his career. It was a cultural touchstone, one that had lasting effects on the people who watched it. He began to embrace his place in the legacy of the film, understanding that Menace II Society had not just defined his career, but had become an indelible part of the conversation about black life in America. His role as Caine had connected him with a generation of viewers who saw his character as a mirror of their own experiences. Tyrin had become part of the very narrative that he had set out to tell. Through his rise to fame, Tyrin had found his voice both as an actor and as a man. He learned to navigate the challenges of the industry, to fight against typecasting, and to understand the power of representation in media. While his career may not have followed the traditional arc of many Hollywood stars, his legacy is one that cannot be erased. Tyrin Turner's rise to fame was defined by his authenticity, his commitment to telling real stories, and his ability to bring depth to every role he played. Even as the industry tried to place him in a box, he never stopped striving to show the world his full range of talent. He wasn't just the troubled youth from Menace II Society. He was Tyrin Turner, a man with a story, a voice, and a career that was far from finished. Success in Hollywood often comes at a price, and for Tyrin Turner, that price was steep. After his iconic performance in Menace II Society, the expectations for his career were sky-high, but the path to long-term success was fraught with unseen challenges, pressures, and personal battles. Though his rise to fame seemed to promise a bright future, the darker side of Hollywood soon began to reveal itself in ways that Tyrin couldn't have predicted. Hollywood's promises of fame and fortune often come with the burden of unrealistic expectations. For many actors like Tyrin, the price of success is not just the pressure to keep performing at a high level, but also the toll it takes on their mental and emotional well-being. Tyrin, like many actors, found himself caught between the promise of greater roles and the crippling fear of being pigeonholed. Despite his success, he felt like a one-hit wonder trapped in the shadow of Menace II Society and the powerful character he had portrayed. He soon realized that the industry wasn't as glamorous as he had imagined. The opportunities that came after the success of the film were few and far between. Hollywood's tendency to categorize black actors into specific roles meant that Tyrin was often offered parts that felt too similar to Caine. He was trapped in the very typecasting he had hoped to avoid. While many expected him to continue his rise as a leading man, Tyrin found himself fighting an uphill battle against an industry more interested in his image than his talent. Behind the scenes, Tyrin was facing personal battles that were equally as complex. His struggles with identity and the weight of expectations began to take their toll. Hollywood was unforgiving, and the constant pressure to maintain an image while fighting for better roles was draining. There were moments where Tyrin doubted his place in the industry, unsure whether he could ever break free from the shadow of Caine. What made matters even more complicated were the reports and rumors that started to circulate about his personal life. As he continued to work, he became a target for gossip and speculation, especially regarding his alleged struggles with substance abuse. Rumors about his involvement with drugs and alcohol began to overshadow his work, and soon Tyrin found himself fighting to maintain his reputation. It was during these years that the true pressure of Hollywood began to weigh heavily on him. As the industry continued to offer him limited roles and the expectations from his early success seemed impossible to meet, Tyrin began to retreat from the public eye. He wasn't living the life of a star anymore, but rather one of an actor trying to keep his career afloat while battling personal demons. This was not the life he had envisioned after Menace II Society. Instead of finding peace and purpose in his career, he was faced with an unrelenting cycle of public expectations and private struggles. But the darkest side of Hollywood wasn't just in the pressures of fame, it also lay in the exploitation and manipulation of young actors. Tyrin had witnessed firsthand how the system could chew people up and spit them out, leaving behind those who were unable to conform or fit into the rigid structures that Hollywood often imposed. In many ways, Tyrin found himself caught in a web of power dynamics and corporate greed, where his true self and his artistic ambitions were often sidelined in favor of business interests. There were also deeper emotional battles. Tyrin had a complex relationship with the movie industry's portrayal of black people. His frustration grew with the constant cycle of being cast into roles that felt too limiting. He wanted to show the world that black actors were capable of much more than playing criminals or streetwise heroes. But Hollywood's desire for marketable roles often meant that his creative vision was sidelined. In an industry that was built on exploitation, he found himself marginalized even after his success. Hollywood didn't know what to do with him. What added to his frustration was the lack of recognition for his talent beyond Menace II Society. While his performance had been lauded by critics, there was little effort from the industry to elevate him to the next level. There were moments when Tyrin questioned his decision to pursue acting altogether. He considered walking away from it all, but the thought of returning to his old life, one filled with uncertainty and hardship, was even more daunting. He had risen from the streets, but now he felt lost in an industry that didn't know how to appreciate him. Despite the challenges he faced, Tyrin never gave up on his craft. He continued to act, appearing in supporting roles in various films and television series, but the same opportunities that were supposed to follow Menace II Society never materialized. And the years continued to pass, with Tyrin's name slowly fading from the spotlight. But he wasn't forgotten. The impact of his performance in Menace II Society remained a legacy that still carried weight, even if the industry itself seemed to overlook him. But behind closed doors, Tyrin's story is not one of a tragic fall or a decline into obscurity. Instead, it's one of survival. He lived through the harsh realities of Hollywood, carving out a path that was uniquely his. His career might not have followed the traditional arc of fame and fortune, but Tyrin Turner's resilience and commitment to his craft stood as a testament to the struggles that many actors face, particularly those who come from backgrounds like his. Tyrin's career was marked not by the roles he didn't get, but by the fight to keep going when everything around him seemed to be falling apart. Despite the betrayals, the struggles, and the countless obstacles placed in his way, he remained determined to be a part of the conversation, to be an artist, and to contribute to a legacy that was his alone. In the years following his rise and fall, Tyrin Turner became a symbol of the untold stories of black actors in Hollywood, those who rose to fame only to find themselves sidelined, forgotten, or pushed to the margins. His story wasn't about the glitz and glamour, it was about survival. It was about how someone could fight against all odds, hold on to their dignity, and continue to stand tall in an industry that often tries to erase them. Tyrin Turner's journey, filled with both triumph and hardship, serves as a powerful reminder of the price of fame, the weight of expectations, and the unspoken truths behind Hollywood's glittering facade. Despite the battles, both internal and external, that threatened to derail his career, Tyrin's story is one of resilience and authenticity. He became more than just an actor who portrayed Caine in Menace II Society. He became a symbol of the fight to be seen, heard, and understood in a system that often fails to recognize the true depth of black talent and struggle. The real revelation in Tyrin's story isn't just in his rise to fame or his struggles against Hollywood's limitations. It's in his ability to persevere, to continue pushing forward despite being repeatedly marginalized. As much as Hollywood tried to cast him into a box, as much as it refused to give him the recognition he deserved, Tyrin's passion for authentic storytelling and his commitment to his craft remained unwavering. His legacy lies not just in the characters he played, but in the courage he displayed by continuing to show up in a world that sought to erase him. What many don't realize is that Menace II Society, the film that initially thrust him into the spotlight, was more than just a stepping stone. It was a vehicle for change. Tyrin's portrayal of Caine captured the pain, the rage, and the humanity of young black men who were often painted with broad negative strokes by the media. Through his performance, he gave a voice to a generation that had long been silenced. It wasn't just a role, it was a message. And that message still resonates today. Even after all the challenges he faced, Tyrin's impact on Hollywood and on culture cannot be denied. His portrayal of Caine was an unforgettable moment in cinematic history, and the ripples of that performance continue to influence a new generation of filmmakers and actors. As Kendrick Lamar once said, Menace II Society shaped his perception of life in the streets, making him understand the complexities of characters like Caine on a much deeper level. Tyrin never expected his role to have that kind of lasting power, but it is a testament to the depth of his performance that it continues to inspire and shape minds decades later. Tyrin Turner may not have followed the traditional path of fame, but his story is a victory in its own right. His legacy is about more than just the roles he played. It's about the doors he helped open for future black actors, and the way he fought to bring authenticity and truth to his craft. As we reflect on Tyrin Turner's journey, we are reminded of the power of resilience, the importance of staying true to oneself, and the necessity of giving voice to stories that matter. Tyrin's journey may not be over, but the lessons learned from his rise, fall, and fight are ones we can all take to heart. What do you think? Do you agree with the impact that Menace II Society had on your life, or do you have your own perspective on Tyrin's journey? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the untold stories of Black excellence. Legends of Black excellence.